Okay, so let's talk about our friend, the polynomial, the quadratic polynomial specifically, that has a restricted domain where we have x is less than 6. So when we start doing this, first step, replace the g of x with y, just like we have been. And then our next step is to flip the x and the y. So instead of y equals, we're going to have x equals -4 times y minus 6 quantity squared plus 9. And where it said x less than or equal to 6, we're now going to have where y is less than or equal to 6. That's going to come with us. It's kind of like a GCF where we just carry it along with us till the end, but we're going to need it eventually. Back to our equation, I'm going to rewrite this so that my y is on the left-hand side. Again, just a preference. If you're comfortable working with the y on the right-hand side, have at it. All right, let's start doing the math to get y by itself. We're going to start by subtracting the 9 from both sides. So we have -4 times y minus 6 quantity squared equal to x minus 9. We need to get rid of that -4 before we can get rid of the square holding our y hostage. So now we're at y minus 6 quantity squared equal to x minus 9 all over -4. We need to get y by itself, and it's trapped within that parentheses squared. So we're going to square root both sides of our equation, remembering the plus or minus on the right-hand side. So we're going to have the y minus 6 quantity squared under the radical on the left. On the right, x minus 9 all over -4. And the whole reason we're doing this is to get rid of the square. So now we're at y minus 6 is equal to plus or minus the square root of x minus 9 all over -4. And we need to add 6 to both sides to get y by itself. And we have y is equal to 6 plus or minus the square root of x minus 9 all over -4. But remember, inverses can only have one option. You can only have one inverse. We have 6 plus the square root of x minus 9 all over -4. Or we have 6 minus the square root of x minus 9 all over -4. And you may be thinking to yourself, which one do we need? Well, if we come back up, we said that y has to be less than or equal to 6. So we're going to use that to our advantage here to make our decision. So for y less than or equal to 6, if we look at our functions, we know that if we add, we get bigger. We have more. We get greater. Whereas if we are subtracting, we get smaller. We have less. And because less than goes with less, we are going to have g inverse of x equal to 6 minus the square root of x minus 9 all over -4. If we needed bigger, so greater than, we would have chosen the plus. And I used G inverse because our original function was G. Next, we need to do the domain and range of both our original and our inverse. I'm going to go ahead and give myself my little chart again. If you don't want to do the chart, you don't have to. It's just a way to keep your work organized. So then if we are looking for the domain of the original, they actually gave it to us in the problem already. At the very beginning, it said x less than or equal to 6. So if we were doing our number line, 6 would be the one in the middle. We would have a bracket because of that equal to sign underneath, and we'd be shading to the left for less than. So we have negative infinity with a parenthesis on up to 6 with a bracket. Because we found the domain of the original, we found the range of the inverse. So let's look at the domain of our inverse. Our inverse, I'm going to scroll down just a little bit. There we go. Is a radical function. And you have to determine its index. Because our index is 2, which is even, we actually have to do some work. Remember, if it's odd, our domain is all real numbers, negative infinity and positive infinity. So we're going to take what's under the radical, set it greater than or equal to 0, and solve. We're going to multiply both sides of our equation by -4. And left-hand side, the -4's cancel. We have x minus 9 less than or equal to 0. And you may be wondering why we flipped our sign. Whenever you multiply or divide by a negative, you flip your sign. So you make it less than or equal to if it's greater than or equal to, and if it was less than or equal to, it would become greater than or equal to. Again, that's only when you multiply or divide by a negative number. Add 9 to both sides, and we get x is less than or equal to 9. If you set up your number line, we're going to have a bracket, and we're going less than 9, which means we are going smaller, so to the left. And we have negative infinity on up to 9 with a bracket. And if we found the domain of the inverse, we found the range of the original.